Captain Alara Voss stood on the cold metal deck of her freighter, staring at the crate in front of her. It was a large rectangular container, sealed tight with no markings other than a strange symbol that glowed faintly under the dim lights of the hangar. The symbol was unfamiliar to her, a design she hadn't seen in any of the trade records. Still, it was just cargo, she told herself. Just another delivery for a client she'd never meet. Her ship, the Tempest, was one of the oldest in the fleet, a reliable if somewhat rusty vessel that had seen more than its fair share of rough jobs. Alara had been a pilot for as long as she could remember, always taking on the hardest assignments for the highest pay. This job wasn't any different. She was supposed to deliver the crate to a space station on the outskirts of the Lumaria system, a place known for its distant politics and shadowy deals. But something about this shipment made her uneasy. She brushed off the feeling, knowing better than to question jobs when the pay was good. As her crew began unloading the rest of the cargo, a message flashed on her console, the words appearing. In bold capitalized text, "Do not open until destination reached. Delivery is critical." Alara frowned. She had never gotten an order like this before. The client hadn't even left their name. Just another oddity, she muttered to herself, turning back to her crew. "Get this on board, folks. Let's get going." The rest of the crew didn't, seemed too concerned, but Alara couldn't shake the nagging feeling in the back of her mind. She double-checked the shipment log. There was no indication of what the cargo was, only the strange request for secrecy. It didn't make sense. Alara trusted her instincts, and right now they were telling her something wasn't right. As the freighter's engines roared to life and the ship left the station's docking bay, Alara settled into the cockpit, watching. The stars stretched into lines as they broke free from the station's gravity. The cold expanse of space lay before her, vast and empty. She set the coordinates for the Lumaria system and leaned back in her seat. Minutes passed. Then something caught her eye on the radar. A blip. A ship, one that wasn't on any of the usual traffic lanes. It was tailing her, staying just outside her sensor's range. Ilara's pulse quickened. She tried to remain calm, but her hands tightened around the controls. She didn't like being followed. It was a rookie mistake to ignore such things, and Alara wasn't a rookie. She checked the radar again. The ship was still there, close but careful. Whoever they weren't being obvious, and that made them more dangerous in her eyes. "Alara, everything all right?" came the voice of Jace Sloan, her first mate. His voice crackled through the intercom. "I'm fine, Jace. Just keep an eye on things below deck," she replied, her voice steady despite the anxiety creeping into her chest. She increased speed, hoping to shake the mysterious ship, but the blip remained, growing steadily closer. It wasn't just a random patrol. This was intentional. "Looks like we're being followed," Alara muttered, her fingers flying over the controls to activate the ship's defensive systems. She wasn't about to let anyone take her by surprise, not when she had valuable cargo on board. The seconds dragged by like hours. The other ship was getting too close for comfort. It had to be a threat. Alara turned her head, looking at the sealed crate in the hold below. She hadn't seen what was inside, but she was beginning to wonder if she really wanted to know. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sharp sound of an alarm blaring through the ship. The radar was picking up multiple ships now, too many to ignore. "Jace, I need you in the cockpit now," Alara shouted into the comm. She spun the controls hard, trying to break free from the pursuing ships, but they were too fast, too coordinated. Whoever they were clearly prepared for a chase, and they were making no effort to hide their intentions. The blips on the radar switched to hostile signals. "Alara, we've got company." Jace's voice came through, his tone urgent. Before she could respond, the warning lights on her console flashed, followed by the unmistakable sound of weapons being deployed. A series of laser blasts streaked past the Tempest, narrowly missing her ship's hull. The attackers weren't playing games. She gritted her teeth. This wasn't just an ordinary delivery job anymore. Whoever was after her cargo was willing to fight for it. And now, she had no choice but to fight back. "Ilara, they're opening fire!" Jace shouted. "We need to make evasive maneuvers." "Hang on," Ilara replied, hitting the throttle. She twisted the controls, veering the ship to the side, narrowly avoiding another barrage of fire. The ships were closing in too quickly. With no choice but to defend herself, Ilara fired back, activating the ship's weapons. The laser cannons cut through space, aiming at the attackers. A few shots found their mark, causing one of the ships to veer off course, but the rest pressed on. Her mind raced. What did they want? Who were these people? And more importantly, what was in the damn crate? As the attack continued, Ilara made the decision. She had to get Zara to safety. The intercom crackled to life. "Ilara, I've got the guns online, but they're getting closer. We need to do something, and fast." "Don't worry, I've got an idea," Ilara said, her voice steady even though her mind was racing. She wasn't about to lose the woman she had just met, not after everything that had happened. They'd both come too far. She opened the comm link to the cargo hold. "Zara, are you all right?" There was a long silence before the soft, strained voice of Zara came through. "I'm fine for now, but they'll come for me soon, won't they?" Ilara could hear the tension in Zara's voice, the fear that she was trying so hard to hide. "Don't worry, I'm getting you out of here. Just stay down and keep your head down. We'll be fine." Zara hesitated for a moment. "You're not just a cargo pilot, are you?" she asked softly. Ilara smiled grimly. "I'm more than just that." With that, she cut off the comm link, focusing on the task at hand. She needed to get through the next few minutes, and she had to do it. Fast. She wasn't going to let anyone stop her. Not today. She could see the approaching ships on the radar now, almost within range of the freighter. The enemy ships had closed in on both sides, blocking off every possible escape route. But Ilara wasn't done yet. She knew the ship better than anyone else, and she knew there was one maneuver that could shake off pursuers. "Ilara, what are you doing?" Jace called out, his voice full of disbelief. "I'm taking them on," Ilara said, pushing the throttle forward. The ship lurched forward as she punched the engines to full speed. A moment later, she engaged the ship's maneuvering thrusters, sending the ship into a violent roll that threw the pursuing ships off their calculated paths. One of the enemy ships attempted to follow, but Ilara slammed the controls, sending the Tempest into a sharp dive. She could hear the roar of the engines as the ship's nose dropped, heading straight toward the asteroid field that bordered the system. It was risky, too risky, but it was their only shot. "Hold on!" Ilara shouted as she pulled the ship back up at the last possible second, the cockpit shaking violently from the sharp turn. The asteroid field stretched out before her, a dangerous labyrinth of jagged rocks and floating debris. A quick glance at the radar told her everything she needed to know. The enemy ships were falling back, reluctant to follow her into the field. They knew they couldn't risk getting damaged in there. "We're in the clear," Ilara muttered, her hands trembling slightly as the adrenaline of the chase began to wear off. Jace's voice came through, sounding relieved but still tense. "That was too close. But we're not out of danger yet. Those ships will regroup." "I know," Ilara replied, her mind already shifting to the next plan. They couldn't stay in the asteroid field forever. They'd need to find a way to, slip past their pursuers and get to safety. But first, she needed to make sure Zara was all right. She flicked a switch and opened the comm link again. "Zara, are you okay?" There was a brief silence before Zara's voice came through, shaky but clear. I'm okay. That was terrifying. Are we safe?" Ilara let out a breath, glancing at the radar once more. The enemy ships hadn't followed them into the asteroid field. For now, they were safe, but only for a short time. "We're safe for now, but we need to keep moving. We're not out of the woods yet." Zara's voice was quieter this time. I'm scared, Alara. Alara's heart went out to her. Zara wasn't just an alien fugitive. She was a person, scared and vulnerable in a way Alara had never seen before. She'd heard the rumors about the Lumaria, the powerful empire that once had humanity in its sights. But Zara was different. Zara wasn't a soldier or a politician. She was just a woman trying to survive. I'm not going to let anything happen to you, Alara said firmly. I promised you. You're getting home safe. I'm going to make sure of it. The stars outside the cockpit window blurred as Alara pushed the Tempest into overdrive, racing through the asteroid field. The ship's hull groaned under the strain, but it held together as she weaved through the floating rocks, narrowly avoiding collisions. Behind her, the enemy ships hovered on the edge of the field, unwilling to follow into the hazardous terrain. For now, they were safe, but Alara knew that wouldn't last long. The radar showed them regrouping, preparing to move in once the asteroid field was behind them. Alara had bought them some time, but it wasn't enough. She needed a plan, and she needed it fast. Alara, we need to talk. Jace's voice came over the comms, his tone more serious than before. I know, Alara replied without looking away from the controls. But we don't have time. They'll be on us soon, and we need to move. We need to think this through. If we head straight for the Lumaria system, we're walking right into their trap. Those ships belong to a faction that's still loyal to the old ways, Jace explained. The Lumaria haven't been peaceful for long. There's too much at stake for them to let Zara go free. Ilara's grip tightened on the controls. She was already well aware of the danger. Zara was more than just a simple cargo. She was the key to something much bigger, and Alara had no illusions about how much the galaxy's powers wanted to control her. We can't keep running forever, Alara said, her voice steady despite the tension. I'll figure it out. A flicker of doubt crossed her mind, but she pushed it aside. They had to keep moving. They couldn't afford to make mistakes. The comms crackled again. Alara, Zara wants to speak to you. Alara hesitated for a moment. She had been avoiding Zara's call, not wanting to distract herself from the urgent need to escape. But now, with the distance growing between them and the enemy ships, she knew it was time. Put her through, Alara said, softening her tone. Zara's voice came through, quiet but clear. Are we safe? For now, Alara replied, her fingers still gripping the controls. But we won't be for long. They'll be after us again the moment we leave the asteroid field. I don't know how long we can keep this up. There was a pause on the other end. Zara sounded anxious, but also relieved. I'm sorry for putting you in danger, she said. I never meant for anyone to get hurt. I just wanted to escape. I didn't want this. Alara took a breath. She could hear the guilt in Zara's voice, and it made her heart ache. This wasn't just a mission anymore. It was a fight for survival, and Zara was caught in the middle of something far bigger than herself. You didn't ask for this, Zara, Alara said, her voice soft but firm. And you don't have to carry this burden alone. We're in this together. Another pause, then Zara's voice came through again, stronger this time. I'm not a pawn, Alara. I'm more than that. I need you to understand what's at stake. The Lumaria. They're not the peaceful people they claim to be. My family. They've been working to manipulate the Empire from within for years. If I'm caught, everything I've done will be for nothing. They'll use me to destroy everything humanity has fought for. Alara felt a chill crawl up her spine. Zara's words painted a darker picture of the Lumaria than she had expected. These weren't just political players. They were dangerous. Zara wasn't just a political figure. She was a target, a symbol of everything that could go wrong if the Lumaria returned to their old ways. So what are we supposed to do? Alara asked, her voice steady despite the weight of what Zara had said. Where do we go from here? We need to find the one place they won't expect, Zara replied. The only place that's neutral, Ilara's brow furrowed. Where's that? Calith Prime, Zara said with certainty. It's a neutral world, a place where no faction has control. It's far enough from the Lumaria, and it's where I can contact allies who'll protect me. The mention of Calith Prime made Ilara pause. She had heard of the place, remote, distant, and mostly free from political turmoil. But getting there would be a challenge. The Lumaria had eyes everywhere, and Calith Prime wasn't exactly known for its hospitality to fugitives, but it was their best option. Calith Prime it is, Ilara said, her mind already running through the calculations. We'll have to avoid every ship between here and there, but it's better than heading straight into enemy territory. I'll get us there. Zara's voice held a note of gratitude. Thank you, Ilara. I know I'm asking a lot, but you're the only person I trust right now. Ilara didn't answer at first. She wasn't doing this for gratitude. She was doing it because Zara was more than just a cargo. She was someone who needed help, and Ilara couldn't turn her back on that. You're not alone in this, Ilara finally said. Just stay down below, keep your head down, and let's get you to Calith Prime. We'll figure it out once we're there. Zara's voice was softer now, a hint of relief slipping through. I'll be waiting. And Ilara? Be careful. I always am, Ilara replied, her fingers moving across the controls as she adjusted their course. The ship was silent for a few moments as the asteroid field slowly began to fade behind them. Ilara focused on the stars ahead, plotting a course. For the unknown. She knew it wasn't going to be easy, and she knew the enemy wasn't going to give up without a fight. But she wasn't about to back down now. Not when Zara had put her trust in her. Not when everything they fought for was at stake. Ilara's fingers flew over the controls, her mind racing as she adjusted the ship's course toward Calith Prime. The radar showed no immediate threats, but she knew it was only a matter of time before the mercenary ships regrouped and resumed their pursuit. The asteroid field had bought them some breathing room, but now, with the open void of space ahead, they were exposed once more. Jace stood beside her in the cockpit, his arms crossed, his expression tense. He knew the odds weren't in their favor, but there wasn't much more they could do. They had made the decision to go to Calith Prime, a risky choice, but it was their best shot. The planet was neutral, a haven where no faction held sway, but it was also a place filled with shady characters, criminals, and mercenaries. The last place the Lumaria would look for their fugitive. You think we can outrun them? Jace asked, his voice low. I don't know, Ilara replied, her gaze fixed on the distant stars. But I'm not going to let them catch us without a fight. Jace didn't say anything more, but his silence spoke volumes. He had been with Ilara long enough to know when she was determined. She was used to making tough decisions, but this time, it was different. This wasn't just about a job or a paycheck. It was personal now. They were fighting for Zara's life, and Ilara wasn't about to fail her. The hum of the engines filled the cockpit, and Ilara adjusted the settings to keep the ship on course. The journey to Calith Prime would take hours, and every minute felt like an eternity. She could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on her. The Lumaria wouldn't stop until Zara was caught, and Ilara knew they'd have to be smarter than ever to stay one step ahead. Are you sure you're okay? Jace asked, glancing at her as she manipulated the controls with ease, her focus unwavering. I'm fine, Ilara said, though she wasn't entirely sure herself. She hadn't had time to think about everything that had happened. The chase, the danger, the fear for Zara's safety. It all swirled in her mind like a storm she couldn't control. But she had to keep going. She had to get them to Calith Prime. Just then, the comms crackled to life, and Zara's voice came through, soft but clear. Ilara, I've been thinking. What happens when we get to Calith Prime? How do we know we can trust anyone there? Ilara sighed, leaning back in her chair for a moment. It was a fair question. Trusting anyone on Calith Prime was risky, especially for someone like Zara. But they didn't have much of a choice. We'll figure it out when we get there, Ilara replied, trying to sound more confident than she felt. We've got friends there, people who know the system. We'll find someone to help. I hope you're right, Zara said. Her voice was tinged with doubt, but there was a quiet determination in it as well. I don't want to go back, Ilara. I can't. Ilara's heart went out to her. Zara wasn't just running from the Lumaria. She was running from everything she had known, from a world that had betrayed her. Zara had been a pawn in a game she didn't understand. And now, with her life on the line, she had nowhere to turn but to Ilara. It was a heavy burden, but Ilara was ready to carry it. You're not going back, Zara, Ilara said, her voice firm. I won't let them take you. Not now, not ever. There was a pause on the other end of the comms, and then Zara's voice came through again, this time softer, almost with a sense of relief. Thank you, Ilara. I don't know what I would have done without you. You don't have to thank me, Ilara replied. We're in this together. The ship continued to hum along, the stars outside the cockpit seeming endless. But Ilara knew they couldn't stay in this calm forever. The enemy ships would be back, and when they came, they'd be ready. Jace turned to her, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the radar. We've got a problem. Ilara's heart skipped a beat. What is it? Another ship, Jace said, pointing at the radar. It's moving fast, and it's on an intercept course. Ilara cursed under her breath. She had hoped they would have more time before they encountered another threat. She quickly adjusted the ship's trajectory, trying to evade the oncoming vessel. But it was no use. The ship was too close, and it was getting closer with every passing second. We can't outrun it, Ilara said, her mind racing. Prepare for a fight, Jace nodded, moving quickly to the weapons console. I'll man the guns. You handle the ship. Ilara's fingers moved with precision, tapping commands into the ship's systems. The radar showed the incoming ship was small but fast, probably a scout ship. It was too early for the full force of the mercenaries to have regrouped, but this one would be a problem. Ilara needed to shake it off before they could send reinforcements. The comms crackled again. Ilara, Zara's voice came through, sounding more urgent now. What's happening? Are we being followed? We've got company, Ilara replied, her voice steady. Stay down below and keep safe. We'll handle this. Zara hesitated. I can help. I know. No, Ilara interrupted. You need to stay hidden. I'm not going to let them get to you. Just trust me. Zara was silent for a moment, and then, softly, she said, I trust you. The ship rocked as Ilara engaged the thrusters, sending the Tempest into a sharp dive to avoid the incoming fire. She could feel the strain of the maneuver, but she knew it was their best shot. As the ship swerved, the enemy scout ship fired again, narrowly missing the freighter. Ilara gritted her teeth, determined to stay one step ahead. They weren't going down without a fight. Not now. The stars outside seemed to stretch endlessly as Ilara kept her eyes fixed on the controls, navigating the Tempest through the cold vastness of space. The enemy ship had pulled back, but it was still out there, hovering just beyond their reach, waiting for the right moment to strike. The brief sense of relief Ilara had felt after evading them vanished quickly as she realized they weren't safe. Not yet. Any sign of reinforcements? She asked Jace, her voice calm, but she could feel the tension in her chest. They had only minutes, maybe seconds, before the rest of the mercenaries would close in on them. She didn't have time to second-guess herself. They had to make it. To Calith Prime. Jace scanned the radar. Nothing yet, but they're not far behind. Her fingers drummed lightly on the console. The Lumaria, Zara's people, had once been a force to be reckoned with, but they had splintered over time, and now they were divided. Some factions still wanted war, while others hoped for peace. Zara was caught in the middle, and every step they took to protect her brought them deeper into dangerous territory. Ilara, "We need to talk," Jace said, breaking the silence. She turned to him, raising an eyebrow. "What's on your mind?" "I don't like it. We're heading straight into the heart of a neutral zone, a place where anything can happen." "You're trusting too many people you don't know," Jace said, his voice quiet but insistent. "What if we get there and the people we're counting on turn out to be just as dangerous as the ones chasing us?" Elara felt a flicker of doubt, but she pushed it aside. "We don't have a choice. We're already committed." Jace didn't seem convinced, but he nodded, respecting her decision. "Just be careful. I'll be on the guns, ready for anything." She appreciated his loyalty, even if it was a bit misplaced. She had no doubt that they would face more challenges before they reached Calith Prime. They'd both seen enough of the galaxy to know that nothing ever went according to plan. The silence between them stretched on as Elara focused on the ship's controls, her mind constantly running through the calculations. She needed to keep them ahead of the mercenaries. She couldn't afford to make a mistake. A sudden beep from the radar snapped her out of her thoughts. "Incoming ship," she said, her voice flat with urgency. Jace tensed. "How far?" "Too close," Elara replied. "It's already within firing range." The enemy ship had found them again. The warning lights flickered on the console, and the deep hum of the ship's engines grew louder. Elara gritted her teeth and pulled the controls hard to the left, sending the Tempest into a sharp turn, dodging a volley of laser fire. The attack was precise. Too precise. These weren't random mercenaries anymore. They had someone experienced at the helm, someone who knew exactly how to fight. Another volley of shots streaked across the sky, and Elara threw the ship into a roll, narrowly avoiding the blasts. She could feel the burn of G-forces pressing against her as she fought to keep the ship in one piece. Jace was already at the weapons station, firing back with the ship's small armament. But it wasn't enough. "We can't keep this up," Jace called out. "We're not going to outrun them with these maneuvers. We need a better plan." Elara's mind raced, her thoughts scattered. There had to be another way, another escape. She glanced at the radar again. There was a chance, but it would be risky. They'd have to dive into a nearby nebula, a dense cloud of gas and dust that could obscure them from enemy sensors. The problem was, the nebula was a trap for ships, not equipped to handle its interference. If they entered, they could lose control or worse, crash into the dense pockets of debris inside. But it was their only shot. "Elara, don't even think about it," Jace said, his voice urgent. He had already read her mind. "The nebula will scramble our systems. We'll be flying blind." "I know," Elara said, her eyes locked on the rapidly closing enemy ship. "But if we don't try, we'll be sitting ducks. We either make it through, or we don't. But we can't just sit here and wait to be shot down." Jace hesitated, clearly not thrilled with the plan. But he knew Elara wouldn't back down. "You're the boss," he muttered, preparing the ship's systems for the dangerous move. Elara gripped the controls tighter, her knuckles white. The nebula was less than a minute away, and the enemy ship was gaining on them. She had to make her move now. With a sharp turn of the steering, the Tempest plunged into the nebula. The ship's systems immediately began to flicker, the radar blurring into static. The comms cut out. For a moment, everything went dark, and Elara could only hear the ship's engines roaring as they pushed forward into the cloud of gas. She couldn't see anything, couldn't even tell if they were still on course. But the enemy ship was behind them. She could feel it. Then, out of nowhere, the nebula gave them an advantage. The enemy's weapons fire was muffled, their sensors scrambled. Elara's hands danced over the controls, guiding the ship through the dense fog. The Tempest was struggling, but they were alive. "Elara, you did it!" Jace shouted through the comms, his voice full of surprise and relief. Elara didn't answer right away. She was focused on one thing, surviving, and they just might. The nebula swallowed them whole, its thick gases swirling around the Tempest, making it hard to see or track their position. The ship's systems struggled to stay functional, the radar, now a blur of static. Ilara gripped the controls, her eyes narrowed in concentration as she felt the ship shudder and groan under the strain. Every inch of the ship felt like it was fighting against the dense cloud of gas that surrounded them. Jace was silent beside her, his hands hovering over the weapons controls, ready for anything. Ilara didn't need to look at him to know he was just as tense as she was. They were flying blind, hoping the nebula would be enough to shield them from the enemy's pursuit. "We're in the clear for now," Ilara muttered to herself, though she didn't believe it for a second. She knew better than to trust the calm after a near miss. The enemy ships were out there regrouping, planning their next move. The Tempest was far from invincible and the odds were stacking against them. A sudden beep broke the silence. Ilara's heart skipped a beat as a faint signal flickered on the radar, barely visible through the interference. She squinted, trying to get a better reading. A small ship, one of the enemy mercenaries, was approaching the edge of the nebula, but it wasn't close enough to get a clear shot. "We're being tracked," Jace said, his voice grim. "They're not far behind. We can't stay in here forever." "I know," Ilara replied, her hands steady on the controls. She wasn't worried about the mercenaries right now. She was focused on getting them out of the nebula and into the clear. The problem was, once they left the gas cloud, the enemy would be able to target them more easily. They were running out of options. Ilara's mind raced, thinking through every possible move. They couldn't keep dodging forever. They needed a plan, and it had to be one that would get them to Calith Prime. She thought back to what Zara had said before about the neutral world where they could find refuge. If they could just make it through the nebula, they could find a way to contact the people who could help them. But first, they needed to escape the reach of their pursuers. "Ilara," Jace said again, his voice low but urgent. "There's something you need to know." "What is it?" Ilara asked, glancing over at him. She didn't have time for distractions, but Jace's tone told her this wasn't just another routine warning. Jace hesitated before speaking. "It's about Zara. I don't think she's telling us everything." Ilara's eyes widened, her grip tightening on the controls. "What do you mean?" "I've been thinking," Jace continued, his voice measured. "Zara says she wants to escape, but what if she's hiding something? She doesn't exactly act like someone who's just running from the Lumaria. She seems too calm about it. Almost like she's leading us somewhere she knows we'll be safe, but it's not the place we think it is." Ilara frowned. "You think she's lying to us?" "I don't know," Jace said. "But I've been watching her closely, and there's something off. She's too collected for someone who's supposed to be fleeing for their life." Ilara's mind churned with doubt. Could Zara really be hiding something? They had come so far, and Ilara had trusted her, promised to get her to safety. But now, with the danger mounting, she couldn't ignore the possibility that Zara might have her own agenda. "I'll talk to her," Ilara said, though she did, and feel entirely sure of what she'd say. She had to know the truth, whatever it was. If Zara was hiding something, it could change everything. She reached for the comms. "Zara, I need you to come to the cockpit." There was a brief pause before Zara's voice came through. "What's going on?" "I need to talk to you," Ilara replied, keeping her voice neutral. "It's important." Zara hesitated, but then responded, "I'll be there in a minute." Ilara watched the radar as Zara made her way to the cockpit. The ship's shaking had lessened slightly, but the tension remained high. Jace had a point. There was something about Zara's calm demeanor that didn't sit right with Ilara. But she wouldn't let her doubts cloud her judgment. Not yet. When Zara entered the cockpit, her eyes flicked to the radar screen, then to Ilara and Jace. Her posture was composed, her expression unreadable. Ilara felt a knot tighten in her stomach. This wasn't the same young woman who had begged for help in the cargo hold. Something had changed. "We need to talk," Ilara said, her voice firm. Jace thinks there's something you're not telling us. Zara's face remained calm, but Ilara saw the faintest flicker of something in her eyes. Fear? Guilt? It was hard to tell. I've told you everything I know, Zara said softly, though there was a subtle edge to her words. I want to go. Home. I want peace for my people. And I trust you, Ilara. You've kept me safe so far, and I believe you can continue to do that. Ilara studied her, trying to read between the lines. Then why does it feel like you're hiding something? Zara took a deep breath, her eyes flicking to the floor. I'm not hiding anything from you, Ilara. But I can't explain everything just yet. Not until we're in a safe place. If I tell you too much now, it could put both of us in more danger. Ilara could sense the truth in Zara's words, but the hesitation nagged at her. She wasn't ready to fully trust Zara yet, not after everything they'd been through, but she didn't have time to press her further. They needed to focus on getting out of the nebula and into Calith Prime. Ilara took a deep breath and turned, back to the controls. All right. But when this is over, you'll tell me everything. Zara nodded, and for the first time there was a hint of something genuine in her expression. I promise. As Ilara powered the Tempest forward, she didn't know if she could fully trust Zara, but she couldn't afford to second-guess herself now. They had come too far to turn back, and whatever secret Zara was keeping, they would have to wait until they were safe. For now, all Ilara could do was keep flying. The silence in the cockpit was deafening as Ilara steered the Tempest out of the nebula, the thick cloud of gas and dust slowly fading away behind them. The stars outside were clear now, a sea of distant pinpricks against the endless void. The ship was still intact, despite the wear and tear from the earlier chase, but it felt fragile in the vastness of space. Ilara knew it wouldn't take long for the mercenaries to catch up, but for now, they were ahead. And that was all that mattered. We're almost there, Ilara said, her voice low and steady. She didn't need to look at the radar to know that Calith Prime was close. The neutral world was their only hope, and Ilara wasn't about to let anything stand in their way. Jace was sitting across from her, his eyes fixed on the weapons console, but Ilara knew he was still on edge. It had been a tense few hours since. They left the nebula, but the time had passed without incident. They were getting closer, but that didn't mean the danger was over. The mercenaries were still out there, and Calith Prime wasn't exactly a safe haven. It was a place where anything could happen, and trusting the wrong people could get them all killed. How much longer? Jace asked, glancing at the clock on the wall. Less than an hour, Ilara replied, her fingers flying over the controls. We'll make it there in time. Just hang in there. He nodded, though Ilara could tell he wasn't completely convinced. The look in his eyes told her that he was already preparing for the worst. Zara had remained silent since their conversation earlier. She was still in the back of the ship, staying out of sight. But Ilara knew she was listening. Zara had promised to tell her the truth once they were safe. But Ilara had a sinking feeling that the young woman was hiding something crucial. She just didn't know what it was. As if on cue, the comms crackled to life. Ilara, Zara's voice came through, a hint of urgency in her tone. We need to talk. Ilara glanced at Jace, who raised an eyebrow. What's going on now? He muttered. Ilara took a deep breath and activated the comms. What is it, Zara? I think I know who's behind the attack, Zara said, her voice calm but filled with tension. It's not just the mercenaries. Someone else is pulling the strings. Ilara's heart skipped a beat. Who? Zara hesitated before answering. My father. He's the one who wants me back. I didn't want to say anything before, but it's time you know the truth. He's the one who set this whole thing in motion. Ilara was stunned. Her mind raced as she processed the words. Zara's father. An influential leader within the Lumeria Empire was behind the attack? It made sense now, but the weight of the revelation hit her like a punch to the gut. "Why didn't you tell us?" Ilara asked, her voice a mix of confusion and anger. "We could have planned better if we knew the truth." Zara sighed, the sound heavy with regret. "I didn't want to put you in more danger. I thought if I kept quiet, I could find a way out of this without involving you. But now I see that was a mistake." Ilara shook her head. "You should have told us from the start. This changes everything." "I know," Zara said softly, "but I wasn't ready to face it. I still don't know if I'm ready. But you need to understand, my father doesn't want peace. He's using me to get what he wants. He'll stop at nothing to have control over the Lumaria and destroy everything we've worked for." Ilara felt a cold chill run down her spine. If Zara's father was really behind all of this, then the stakes had just gotten much higher. Not only were they fighting for Zara's life, but they were also up against an empire that was determined to regain its power. "We have to stop him," Ilara said, her voice firm. "We can't let him destroy everything." Zara's voice trembled. "I don't know how we can stop him. He's too powerful. But if we can get to Calith Prime, we'll find a way. We'll contact the people who can help." Ilara glanced at Jace, who was watching her closely. He knew they couldn't do this alone. They would need allies, and Calith Prime was the only place where they might find some. "All right," Ilara said, her mind already shifting into problem-solving mode. "We'll make it to Calith Prime, and then we'll figure out what to do next. But Zara, this isn't just about you anymore. If your father has the power to destroy the peace between humanity and the Lumaria, we need to stop him before it's too late." There was a long pause on the comms before Zara spoke again, her voice filled with resolve. "I understand, and I'm ready. We'll do this together." The conversation ended, and Ilara turned her focus back to the controls. They were getting closer to Calith Prime, and time was running out. The mercenaries weren't far behind, and she could feel the weight of everything resting on her shoulders. This wasn't just about getting Zara to safety anymore. It was about stopping a war before it could begin. Jace looked at her, his expression unreadable. "So what now?" Ilara took a deep breath, her mind already calculating their next move. "We get to Calith Prime, find the right people, and stop Zara's father from starting a war. We're not just running from him anymore, we're going to take him down." Jace nodded. "I'm with you, Ilara. Let's do this." The stars outside the Tempest stretched into a brilliant sea of light, and for the first time in what felt like ages, Ilara allowed herself a small breath of hope. They had a chance, just a chance. But it was enough to keep moving forward. They weren't running anymore. They were fighting for something bigger than themselves. And that was a fight. Ilara was ready to win.